BLON does crazy stuff, and I dig that about them. Okay, review of the BLON BL MAX. I can get this done in about 10 minutes. This is one of those ones that I should be able to get my message across pretty quick. BLON BL MAX, 2 dynamic drivers. The BLON MAX is a warm tilted dual dynamic set that plays back rock and roll and hip hop libraries well. Fit is an obvious consideration due to its size. At the end of this video, you can see a close-up of it compared to the 03. It's a big boy. Silicone tips, CP100 did not fare as well as foam tips. That's the CP100s right there. I use them for every set. They did not quite secure the fit that I wanted with this set, so I went ahead and used foam tips. Bass did not play back with the authority the graph would indicate. The graph is below this text card right here. You can see that it's elevated in the sub bass, mid bass. It's not, doesn't sound really like it graphs except mid bass, maybe to upper mids, but that sub bass, mid bass elevation doesn't sound like it's almost equal to the treble to my ears. Mid-frequency elements, vocal, guitar, etc. did not seem obviously pulled back. I thought that was one of the stronger points of this set, vocals. They seemed to be decent to good. There didn't seem to be any real damage. They certainly weren't being overwhelmed by low frequency. Slowness, the perception of slowness or woolliness or just overemphasis, because it doesn't really sound like this is tuned up in the bass that much. Treble is accurate without overemphasis of vocal or vocal harmonics. This has, let's go ahead and move to a graph. That's exploded view. This is the graph, and according to the graph, the bass and the sub bass and the mid bass is equal to the 03, and actually there's a little bit more mid bass, and it gets to the mids a little bit later. That is not the way that it replays to the ear with a 4-string bass guitar, with hip hop drops. Nothing is like that. So this is how they graph. However, they don't sound like this to the ear. And a good example that would be the Mini, which had huge bass, but it's a Mini and a micro driver. So graphs will give you maybe an overall tonality preview, but they're not going to give you technicalities or insights into resolution or texture or transients or any of that other stuff that people bring up in reviews. So tonality, this would seem to be a maybe overly warm set. It's actually a V. And it doesn't sound actually that much like the V that is shown in the graph. So let me go ahead and drop the assets right here. One more thing. Exploded view, 10mm driver, and then a 6mm driver. In potential, this is the best BLON that's been made, just because you can probably turn it into a bass monster, put in an extra tip flange on the end of the nozzle, and then extend the tip so that you can get a better insert, and then go nuts with EQ on this driver, and then still preserve this, or you're going to damage your ability to perceive it. But the potential for this is higher than anything BLON has released. But I review stuff out of the box, starting with the low frequency. Started with Tupac, Ambitions as a Rider, noted with the CP100s that was not really giving me much of a slam. Switched to foams and went to Big Boy, Kill Jill, after checking Tupac and thinking it gave me a little more bass, and I thought that this didn't give me the impact that I was expecting based on the graph. So there's a bias that you get when you look at a graph if you see it before you do your listening, and sometimes it influences you, you think, because it graphs big, you say it sounds big, and then there's times where the graph doesn't reflect what comes out of your mouth, and that's like right now. It doesn't sound like a bassy set. This doesn't hit really hard. Clearly to my ears. I was expecting more and I didn't get it, so it didn't give me bias to having a bass shelf that looked substantial, because I heard completely different, so I went against my preconceptions because it doesn't do that. On a 4-string bass guitar, Black Sabbath Sweetleaf going on at the same time as a drum kit, low frequency instruments that are overlapping on the frequency scale and going on at the same time and on the time scale, masking, smudging can go on, just a pushing together of the two things. This set played that decently. I think I enjoy the 03 a little bit more, but again, I think the Max is all about potential, and because it's in the 40 or below price range, some people can afford to maybe take the chance of this being the best BLON that they've gotten and still do it for under 50 bucks. Out of the box, I would say the 03 is a better set than this. So triple drop plus a bass guitar sounded okay. 4-string bass guitar with fast pulls and releases sounded okay, not really notable. The mid bass is more than the 03, yet on Dire Straits, Sultans of Swing, where the bassist can sound like he's being on the virtual stage pushed up a little bit, wasn't doing that at all. It was actually sounded like the bassist was a little bit stepped back from Mark Knopfler and his lead guitar and his vocals. It's very counterintuitive. Look at the graphic, have expectations, listen. It's not doing that. This could all be down to proper depth of insertion because of the way that this set fits. It's likely that that is the case, but I gotta go with what I heard. Vocals like Elton John, Jerry Garcia, Robert Palmer, Robert Plant, Chris Cornell. I thought that vocals all sounded like probably the best thing that the BLON MAX does. Graph of a V shape wouldn't maybe indicate that that would be its strong point. However, it is to this listener probably the best point of the set. Listening to upper frequency things like Jimi Hendrix's guitar solos and something like All Along the Watchtower, the three different solos, I thought the harmonics of the electric guitar with distortion pedals were fine. They seem to get enough of it to sound natural without the fatigue that goes a lot of times with a track like All Along the Watchtower. I wasn't really getting that. Listening to Led Zeppelin, 2 tracks in particular. One would be the kick drum, because I'm checking again the low frequency, and again it's a kick drum, but it doesn't sound authoritative like it's supposed to, so it's a little bit pulled back in that sense, and that's just repeating what I already kind of got from other bass checks. The cymbal strikes on Hey Hey What Can I Do, which appear many times, to be specific, 7 seconds, 13, 16, 28, 37, 47, 53, 59, all crisp and clean. The tail of the cymbal sound a little bit soft, but not bad. It sounded close enough that it wasn't jumping out at me. I was more captured by the low frequency, lack of extreme authority. One last note before we get out. The Angel from Massive Attack has got a very powerful low-end drone. On this set, it's different. It's a low-end energy event. It's not the droning, overpowering thing that can... It's the appealing part of this track, but it could be maybe much for other people. This set, for reasons that are probably related to the fit, which I was unable to get better, was turning it into a softer bass presentation and an overall more balanced sound than the graph indicates. It's like taking a V and tilting it a little bit down. That's probably not what people want when they see a graph of something and say, I want to buy that because I like what that graph looks like, and then you get something that sounds different. But I'm going to go ahead and wreck this set because it did sound decent in the replay, minus the, I wish it had more impact. I think that's related to fit, and the potential of a 2 dynamic driver set is, it could easily be the best that BLON's released, but I can't sit here and say that because I don't interpret it that way with my library and with the quality of the fit that I was able to achieve. So that's it. I'll let you guys go. I do wreck it because it's $37 and it's 2 dynamic drivers. I caution about the fit. If you're good with tip rolling, you'll probably have no problems whatsoever. I will predict that on 10/10, October 10th, 2021, that if 10 reviews come out for this, they're probably going to get 10 slightly different views because it's going to be directly related to the ability of the reviewer to get a good, secure, full seal. I predict that now. It's an easy prediction to make. I was then able to get the ideal seal, but 2 drivers, $40, potential. I'll never know what that is, but you might. So proceed with caution. But I wreck it, cautious wreck, okay? And I'm out. And the video of the close-up should follow right after this. And now I'm out. Okay, closer look at the BLON MAX. Go ahead and take a look at the 03, which probably a lot of you are a lot more familiar with, and take a look at the size comparison between the two. You can see this is substantially larger. That is not really the problem that I'm having. I think the problem that I have myself is if this was just a little bit longer. They did the angles, I think, right. It doesn't have a problem getting actually into my ear. Let's take a look at this for a second. This is a pretty good reflection of what I'm getting. It is actually getting in past the entire, this whole soft area outside the skull is basically called the pinna area. All of that area is getting, I'm getting into that, into the ear canal in the back is where I'm probably having a little bit of a problem. It's just not quite long enough, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist to get over that problem. In fact, there's people watching this video right now probably thinking, that's not a problem for me, I'll be able to deal with that. I'm sure you will. Its profile and the way that they designed the fat part to go from this huge cap to this area, it's actually not that big of a deal. It just seems like for me, the length of the stem, if I were to put another sleeve, cut that off, and then do like people do that really are good at tip rolling, that this won't be a problem for them at all. So I talked a lot about fit in the video and how it might impact the sound, but that might be completely not an issue for you. When you see the next review for this, it might be completely different because they get a fit that's no problem. That's when sets that have, you know, hit and miss fit, you're going to get a lot of different interpretations. My interpretation, again, is for its price, it's an investment. If they charged $90 for this or something, 70, 80, 90, I would be issuing caution. At its price point, 2 dynamic drivers, potential to do all kinds of crazy stuff with just that. You could go bass head crazy with that just by driving up the bass driver and not doing anything with the other. There's so much potential in this beyond anything BLON has made so far. The Mini's a Mini, it just fits good. It's a micro driver. You're not going to do anything with that. The Prometheus is in a very small cavity. You're not really going to be able to do anything with that because you can't change that. This has got a large cavity and it's got 2 drivers. Potential, huge, more than any BLON that's been released. But I got to review stuff as they come out of the box, and it's a, just be aware, that's all. And this was tilted the whole time. Ghetto. And I'm out.